Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I want to talk about the controversy surrounding rank distribution in Marvel Rivals. There was a chart that went viral recently, a lot of people weighing in about whether we need placement matches and what changes need to happen in Marvel Rivals. I want to talk about it, give my own feedback, and talk about why I think there is some overreaction within the community, but also some of this was brought on by our own complaints, and that is very fascinating to me as well. So if you didn't see the chart, I will link it in the description down below, but essentially you have 1.2 million players who are in Bronze 3 out of a possible 3.8 million. Now, because of these numbers, the way this chart specifically works is that you have to play at least one match in Bronze in order to qualify. So players who reached the level 10 limit to qualify for ranked but didn't necessarily play a ranked game are not on this chart specifically. And you see it's a huge spike from Bronze 3 at 1.2 million all the way down to 315k in Bronze 2. Why that's fascinating is because it's atypical amongst games of this nature. You don't see a heavy split like that in other hero shooters like Overwatch and or Apex Legends, games like that at all. And then from there, every rank is on a declining scale essentially. So you'll see 285k players in Silver 3, 244, and then 213 in Silver 1. But then in every rank, when you achieve the next rank, you're going to see an uptick. So in Silver 3, there's that 213k, and then it rises up to 273k once you get to Gold 3. And you see that throughout all of the different ranks. You get 79k in Plat 3, but then 83k in Diamond, in Plat 1, and then 83k in Diamond 3. So you kind of see this kind of declining scale, but also a spike when you go from one rank to the next. Now, there is 50k players in Grandmaster. I do feel like people are looking at Grandmaster for the name and not where it falls on the scale. Everyone says, oh, Grandmaster is low rank, which I think is absurd, but it's a mid-high rank, I would say. Whereas Celestial is where Grandmaster is in most other games, and this is why they added Celestial into the game after Season 0, because they saw that there was a potential problem here. Whereas you only have 13k players in Celestial 3, and then 1.8 in Celestial 1, 1.7k in Eternity. And so that, I feel like, is fair as far as the top rank. Grandmaster is not the equivalent of Grandmaster in other games, in my opinion, and people get caught up on the name so much that they feel like this should be the highest rank, and it's just not. Even though Grandmaster, I think, is something that you should pat yourself on the back if you hit that level, it's not such a high rank that it's the elite players in the game. That is Celestial. That is Eternity. And I think there is reason for that. I think the developers have designed it this way on purpose for several reasons. One, players tend to play longer and enjoy the game more when they are seeing positive progression, when they are ranking up a bit faster. And so that is why you'll see players still gaining more than they lose, and you can achieve Grandmaster even with a, I believe, 45% or so win rate as long as you play enough games. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I understand why the developers will want people playing that much. And that's, again, why they had Celestial in there. It's a twofold problem. They added an additional rank, and they were expecting to have a mid-season rank reset where you drop down a rank and a half. That would have also leveled things out, so the players who are climbing quickly can still get to their appropriate rank, and the players who are just grinding over and over again will have a harder time getting to a rank they don't necessarily deserve. And so because of that, I feel like that would kind of even things out a bit better. Right now, the stats would look much different if we had that mid-season rank reset. And I feel like that's something that people are overlooking. And I think going forward, I think the mid-season rank reset would be a good thing overall. And that should be a lesson learned that this system was designed this way on purpose. Marvel Rivals at the end of the day is a more casual game for the most part. And so it's unsurprising that you're going to see more players in some of these other ranks. But again, when you're comparing the ranks, you got to look at where they fall in line, not necessarily what the names are. So that's something very, very important to keep in mind. Now, as far as going over a placement games, I feel like that is something that I could see Marvel Rivals doing in the future. I don't necessarily believe it's going to be a major deal, especially as we get from season to season. Players fall off naturally. Players go up and down, and once they drop in rank, maybe they don't play the next season, and then they drop down again. Whereas if you were to play placement matches, yeah, you jump up right away, but would you necessarily place high enough in order to jump back in? And would you still have that same skill level? Say you take several seasons off and then you jump back in and it places you in a rank that you don't necessarily deserve. So there's a lot of questions about that. I don't necessarily believe that a placement match system is better than rank reset personally, especially for this game and the way that it's designed. I feel like what we have now is fine and will work going forward over the long run. It's very early though. We are in season 1. I think people are already forgetting how early in this game we are. There are going to be tweaks and adjustments. Hopefully we see some things changing as far as making it more clear where people deserve to be as far as their ranks. And I do feel like it's understandable that they want to reward players for putting in the time. Skill matters, obviously, but if you're not Celestial or Eternity, then you're going to have players of a wide variety of skill levels. That's just the bottom line at this point. And I feel like that's true in most games. Like, I played a lot of Apex Legends in Diamond Ranked, and we saw a vast difference in player skill levels, regardless of, what the game was, because of the way these games work, you'll often see a disparity there where you'll have players, especially in a game that doesn't have role lock or role queue, you will see that players are maybe climbing easily with one role like Vanguard or Strategist, and then they have to fill into another one and they end up struggling, so they look worse than they are. Just something to keep in mind. I feel like this is an overblown issue right now. Typically games will look like more of a bell curve where you'll see most players around high silver into gold and then maybe into low platinum. Like, that's where you'll see the peak of players typically in other games. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like this is necessarily a bad thing at this stage, and we kind of have to let things play out a little bit more before overreacting. I know everyone wants to be like, okay, this is changes we need instantly, and I do feel like some tweaks are needed, but I don't feel like we're at the point where an overhaul of the system is necessary. And I do think that compared to Overwatch, more players in Marvel Rivals solo queue, and that leads to a bigger disparity with how the games feel, because the randomization of playing with people you don't know, not being on comms potentially, not having certain roles filled, can make the game feel less consistent. And that is a problem, I think, for higher ranks specifically, but I don't think it's the biggest issue at the end of the day. And I do feel like players need to start coming together to play, maybe not full 5 or 4 or 6 stacking, but potentially instead just sticking with a 2 to 3 stack, which is where I believe the sweet spot is anyway in the game right now. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you agree or disagree? I'd love to hear from you guys. Comment, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. My name is JoPa. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.